Hey, I'm Maddie, and this is Moses, and this is the PropMedia podcast where we talk about everything around property media.
And today we're going to be interviewing Renee Nickerson, who I unapologetically is my favorite guest that we've ever had because she's my wife, but she is also a Airbnb managing empress who runs 110 properties or so in Greenville and the upstate of South Carolina. So if you're interested in how do you add to your repertoire of not just shooting for realtors, but maybe shooting for STR, Airbnb kinds of posts as well, then tune in and learn from the master. So you launched a management company in 2019. So tell us a little bit, the short version of your journey in scaling and an Airbnb and other kinds of rental empire.
Sure. So in 2018, I started having an Airbnb in my home. Just really enjoyed that and was curious where that could take me. And was able to, through some advertising work I did, met up with another manager in Atlanta who does this as well. And we actually still keep in touch to this day. And she told me a little bit about the property management side in September, around Labor Day of 2019. And I signed my first client in October. Short-term rentals was kind of our specialty, so we stayed really strict to that until COVID came in 2020, and we realized that there was a market for travel nurses and just trying to find ways to monetize and keep our STRs afloat through the shutdown. It ended up becoming another niche for us that we definitely have the biggest portfolio of corporate rentals here in Greenville and have been able to really fulfill a lot of needs there. And then I guess it was maybe a couple years ago, we decided to just take that same level of hospitality into the long-term space as well. We just really believe that everyone deserves responsive property management, no matter where they're coming to stay. So slowly but surely, one property at a time, we've been adding to our portfolio, staying really local, staying really focused to our values, our commitment to excellence and great stays, and letting that carry through all of our different products.
I heard a little bit of jargon, STR. What is an STR?
Yes. So an STR, when I say that, I mean a short-term rental, and I mean something that you're going to book like a vacation stay at, usually a couple nights up to a couple weeks. So your traditional Airbnb, that would be an STR. Midterm or MTR is usually going to be a furnished monthly stay. So 30 nights minimum. Usually that's a legal requirement in a lot of places, usually up to 6 months at a time. And then that's also furnished. And then if I say long-term or LTR, I'm usually referring to your traditional 1 year lease, unfurnished property, like an apartment you would rent.
So why do you do all three? It's a little different. It's not a lot of property managers to do all three.
That's true. I think a lot of them start with long-term and get really scared of the short-term side of it because I think it's the opposite. There's some things about long-term that are a little dicier than short-term. So in some ways, kind of building from the most complex offering and able to simplify it down. Again, like I said, some ways they're not simpler. We just been able to do that. And part of it too is we're now a one-stop shop for anyone with residential property needs. So no matter what you have, if it's a residential property, if we can take it on, we can choose the highest and best use for that property and assist you. So that allows us to kind of grow with our clients. A lot of them are kind of first time or newer investors. So as they continue to acquire, we can continue to be their one-stop shop for property management needs.
So certain property, like I think in a lot of people's minds, like if you can Airbnb a property, that's going to be the most money or the best option. But it sounds like that's not really the case. So you would sit down with somebody who's thinking about leasing a property and kind of walk through all the different options. Like, what does that normally look like?
Yes. So I usually just kind of get a property address from them, do some initial look on Zillow even to kind of get an idea of the property. You want to check with HOAs and municipalities for if the STR is even an option. And then it really comes down to kind of the feel of the property as well as the price that you can get. So with short-term rental, you're not really seeing kind of like if a certain offering a certain area is going to kind of give you the same rent based on amenities that can change that. But with long-term, right, if you're in the right school district or something like that, you can have hundreds of dollars of difference based on your neighborhood. So there could be a situation where the long-term rent is really low for the market, but Airbnb is going to be at market, or a situation where your long-term rent is actually really high and we're not sure that the Airbnb after expenses, additional expenses, paying for all those utilities and things like that will be worth it. And then some of it just comes down to the feel of the property. Guests are getting pickier and pickier on Airbnb, so they really want something that's going to stand out, that's going to be kind of quirky and different and new, kind of your basic run-of-the-mill houses, even sometimes townhomes, because in our market, they really want space more than that. Other markets, that wouldn't make a difference. Just sometimes aren't the best fit. And then the midterm is kind of a happy medium. A lot of times properties that are a little bit more kind of normal, like a normal 3-2 ranch with a garage, that does really well for midterm, because when you're coming to stay for a long time, you want familiarity. When you're coming to stay for a short time, you want excitement and difference and the quirky, fun property. So some of it just really comes down to just the general feel of the property. And of course, location and things like that play a big factor too.
So you've got tons and tons of great reviews, 7,000 something reviews, I think, on across different platforms. So, I mean, that's pretty incredible. So what's the secret to managing tons of different Airbnbs, but having a 4.91 over thousands and thousands of reviews?
Yeah, so that's pretty rare for us. We're just shy of 7,000 reviews. That is just on Airbnb. It's our main platform. And yes, really high ratings. And for us, it just comes down to our big thing is being really local. A lot of managers like me, once they get this under their belt, they just start expanding into a lot of different markets. But I really value having boots on the ground here, having knowledge of like the events and the best recommendations for restaurants. The other thing is just we have such a high level of attention to everything. So when we take on new properties, we either have approved all of the furnishing they have, or we've done it ourselves. And usually it's a mixture of the two. And we handle all the photography. So we work with the photographer to make sure it's what we want. We handle all of the listing. It's under our name. And then we also have our own in-house cleaning team. So instead of kind of networking that out to a bunch of disparate contractors that I'm hoping will show up and clean my properties, I've got cleaners that have been with me for like 5 years, and they're directly overseen by our operations director. So we just really try to make sure that we have a handle on every piece of it. We have certain amenities, snacks, water bottles, and things like that, certain kitchen essentials we leave out in every place. So for us, it's a really big commitment to Westbrook being a brand. And so there's an expectation, whether you're in one of more of our budget properties or a luxury downtown condo, there's a standard of excellence that we have at every property, every time. And that has proven itself time and time again.
And you get a lot of repeat guests and stuff like that compared to normal Airbnbs, because there are little perks, and I forgot what do you call it? Like little something that's like above and beyond. You call it something else though.
I don't know. I mean, I read a book where it was called like grace notes or whatever, but I don't know if I've used that term.
We've had an argument since like before Renee and I were married about her guest books. Her guest books are truly like, they're a hefty little tome.
They're dense
at every single one of things to do in Greenville. But my contention is that really it needs to be shortened down to one page, and it's go to the trapdoor.
That is, yes.
And that's basically all it needs to say.
So essentially you have the Cheesecake Factory version of a guest book is that what you're saying?
It is that is accurate. It is like, it's stupid. It's about 20 pages. And then we actually, this is again above and beyond. This is probably too much, but we actually go through every guest book, and we have like an Excel sheet that tracks the distance from the exact rental they're in. So every guest book says like, this is 10 minutes from you.
That's cool.
Across all 50.
It is pretty cool. So far, the trapdoor doesn't have a great call out, but it's at least in there now. So
it's in there, and it has like the star. So I had a Cicerone friend, which is, if you're not familiar, that's like the sommelier for beer. If you're not familiar with the sommelier, that's the wine person. She actually recommended some breweries, so we have her special call outs in there, and a couple of recommendations for top ones and trapdoors in there. The one thing that is tough sometimes is it is a bear to update that. And there are so many new restaurants in Greenville.
All the time.
It's hard to kind of keep up with everything. But I feel like the new ones people find really easily on the internet. So we kind of, and if we try to make a note, if they're like, this one closed, we're like, I'm so sorry. So, but it is something that people love, actually having the physical guest book. We get that comment all the time, to actually flip through versus like a digital one, which is what a lot of hosts are doing. So, and then I thought you were talking about guest books. We actually do have a book as well where they can like write little notes about their stay. Yeah. Well, it's got like more of like, they can write stories, and we've had one person tell us that they got married in our living room. So that was a fun one.
That's pretty good.
So it sounds you've scaled over 7 years. It sounds like, well, 6-ish years, to 110 properties. What was kind of that journey like? And, where have you seen the most growth in that time period?
I think it was a couple years ago. We've been a little steady for a while now on our growth, but a couple years ago, especially when, rates were a little lower, right? And things were kind of flying off the market. I think we staged like 30 homes that year. So that was pretty intense. Like actually going in and like mostly furnishing or partially furnishing those. So I think that was about 2 years ago. When we brought Karen, our full-time designer, on full-time. She did a ton that year. So, but then with long terms, we've seen some more recent scaling with taking on different portfolios. We manage an entire townhome complex on the Swamp Rabbit Trail in TR. So that's been some bigger acquisitions. So with right now, I feel like people are a little bit more skittish, and interest rates have been high for so long that people are kind of waiting it out. But I'm anticipating, which is some leads and action we have, I think we're going to be poised for more growth in this market probably in the spring, hopefully, as rates continue to drop a little bit.
So you're a realtor as well as a property manager. You kind of do real estate. I don't want to say on the side, but like your main gig is Westbrook Hospitality, and then you're also a phenomenal realtor. So you book photo shoots for both. What's different shooting for an Airbnb as opposed to just shooting for like MLS photos that most realtors would want?
Yeah, it's very, very different. And so especially when I first started my business, before I started working with North 7th on our photography, I didn't hire a real estate photographer. I actually hired someone that did a lot of like branding photography, photo, wedding, and things like that, because I needed that attention to detail and that eye. Because with real estate photography, like, I don't want the furniture focus, right? I want people to see the possibilities of what they can do in the space, how they can fit their own life into the space, to kind of provoke imagination, to make it look as big as possible, right? So really big wide angles from the corner, just so people can see this blank canvas to imagine their lives in. Airbnb is completely the opposite. Our photos are the only thing really that gets us to book. People don't read our descriptions, spend a lot of time writing those, and they don't get read. They're just looking at pictures to book their place, and they need to see the attention to detail as much as possible in the photography. So they do need wide angles to kind of see the entire layout of the room, but they need to be zoomed in on the beds to really show the linens and things like that. You need to show what it would be like to live and move in that space, and it needs some more of an artistic flair to it as well, thinking more of like a magazine level shoot, also while still having those wide angles for real estate kind of married together to be a really, really good shoot. It's kind of the basics of what we're looking for. I know I drove one of my photographers absolutely crazy because I had this one shot I wanted of the bed where it was like kind of at the foot of the bed where you could just see the pillows, and very particular about how this shot looked. So just things like that really kind of bring people into the space and really let them kind of feel it on that level is so important to have. And it's been really a huge part of what we do. And we have noticed when we've had, some older photos from the past before we learned some of this, when we have reshot those properties with some updated photography, we do see an increase in bookings. So it can make a huge difference in revenue as well.
Yeah, I think it's not completely obvious. I think if you're coming from a real estate photography background, why that would be different at first blush. But I do think once you start digging into it, I think we're talking about makes a ton of sense. When you're shooting real estate photos, it's about the architectural pieces, the things that are going to stay the same with
and
people moving out and their furniture leaves.
You're depersonalizing in that world where people can kind of read themselves into it long term. But on the other hand, like with an Airbnb, it's kind of the opposite. You kind of want them to get the vibe, kind of catch the vibe and want to be there.
Right. Well, and you've put a lot of work and effort in staging a house and making aesthetic choices, and that, and particularly for short-term rentals, it seems like that quirkiness and design appeal is a big part of why someone would pick that that rental. And so the photography needs to showcase something different. And then I know that there's a lot of other small things. What are the other kind of details that are important in a short-term rental, like a collection of photos? If you're going to shoot, how many photos are there, and like what are the little detail things that you found to be super important?
Yeah, so I can definitely go into that. And then I think at some point I'd love to, if you remind me, to circle back to this continuum, right, of like depersonalization to personalization, because I think some people are pushing it potentially a little far. And so anyway, but on the shots that matter, I think really, highlighting amenities that you do have. If it's not seen, you don't want to go so extreme and take a picture of like the closets and the hangers, right? That's a little bit too much. But making sure that like the TV in the master bedroom is in a shot, you would really try to avoid that on a real estate photography shot. But on something like this, kind of showing that it does have a TV would make a big difference. as well as the kitchen. So these are less artistic, but we found them to be really functional. Is our kitchens are really well stocked, but people don't see that because the cabinets are closed. So now we've had our photographers opening the cabinets, pulling out drawers, and kind of showcasing, like, they can see that there are glasses and plates and pots and things like that. That is not a very artistic or fun to look at shot, but it is really practical and kind of shows people what they can expect. And I think one thing that is unique to us is I do not like leave out snacks and take pictures of those. For me, I like there's an Airbnb review question that says, did this go beyond your expectations? So there's supposed to be a surprise element. So for me, like, that's always a surprise bonus that there's a snack bowl versus I literally have them hide it for the photo shoots. We also leave out like York peppermint patties on the bed. So we make sure those amenities
We
aren't in our
steal
photos so that we
those
have
sometimes.
a space. Yeah. Oh, I believe it. I believe you do. Put more back out anyway. But we like to have some kind of secret things there. I think, again, the beds, the linens, any outdoor spaces are huge. So showing how those can work, office spaces, and then if you are like on a lake, right, showing the kayaks and the paddle boards and the life jackets, all that kind of stuff becomes really important. And I would say usually we end up with more detailed shots than we use because you can't overwhelm with that. But we try to kind of create a photo story. I'd say we usually use between 30 to 50 photos, 50 for like a big 4-bedroom house. But usually we try to keep it probably between 20 to 30 for our like smaller 2 and 3 bedroom homes. One downside of Airbnb now is I used to be able to like kind of orchestrate my own photo story, but now basically they just kind of group it by room. So kind of within each room, you need to have like a mixture of each so that they can easily see it. We still take the time to order them in case someone swipes through, but for the most part, Airbnb just showcases it room by room versus allowing you to kind of, I like to build the flow of like walking through the house and kind of what you see, but we work with what we have.
You said there was a major distinction between personalization and I guess whatever the alternative that is.
Circle back around. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
Okay. Yeah. So there's been this kind of move to like really stage like lifestyle Airbnb photos with people in them. And maybe I'm wrong, but I just think that's not what anyone wants to see.
With
like they'll have
like
a family
actors?
playing board games. Yeah, like they'll do.
Isn't that like a fair housing issue?
Not on Airbnb.
I mean, it's still leasing, sort of. Like,
No, I don't think fair housing applies to
No.
Airbnb.
I mean, it definitely applies to like you can't discriminate on hotels and stuff like that. So I don't know why it wouldn't.
Oh,
be for
hotels
Airbnb.
you can have models in your photos.
It's
Resorts
true.
and stuff.
It's
Architecture.
true.
Yeah.
But I mean, even realtors have done it. I mean, we saw a shoot recently where they did a family shot in a video. Like, have you seen that trend where like the house is a person and it's telling its story and it needs its next owner?
Yes.
Yeah, we've seen some of those. Yeah. So it's kind of like that, but Airbnb. But like my whole thing I tell people when I'm staging a home that they lived in is people want to feel at home, but not like they're at your home. Like there's a limit of like, oh, this is homey, but I'm not in someone's home. I don't want to think that other people have been there. So for me, this idea of like having a family playing board games at a table or like sitting in a kayak, I just feel like it kind of ruins some of that magic. So like in real estate where we want people to take an empty space and envision their stuff in it, I want them to take in a furnished space and envision them in it, not some other family that's been there before them. So maybe that works in some markets, some high dollar markets, but it's a trend I've seen a lot of people pushing for that I just don't know has the kind of results. I think it would be very confusing to be scrolling through Airbnb and all of a sudden see like, it's like Goldilocks, someone's in your bed. It just kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to our conversation. 30 to 50 photos. You've got you mentioned a lot of amenities. Some things that in the process of us working together, stuff that I wouldn't have thought of, like you mentioned, opening cabinets and drawers, seeing stuff like that. Obviously, amenities as far as like if they have boats or a golf cart or whatever the stuff is. That stuff is definitely things you do not do with real estate stuff. But have you seen stuff that you are like, that's a big no-no, even from North 7th? I know our process was when we started working together, we were shooting a lot of real estate, but you've spent time even working directly with our team of photographers at the time in giving a little bit of your own training in how to shoot stuff. But what are the big things to avoid when you're shooting Airbnb, that particularly if you're coming from a real estate background?
I think the biggest thing, if I remember, it's been a while since we kind of talked through it with the photographers there, is just really getting those straight on shots. I feel like real estate photographers don't want to shoot anything straight on except for the front of the house. Everything's angled, 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 angled. I really need like the bed, center frame, straight on. And then when I'm clicking at like the master bedroom, then I've got like angled bed with TV, showing how big the room is. And then like zoomed in, this is the bed, like a hotel shot. I think too, like other things that I think get missed is a lot of times real estate photographers will just take a photo of like the bathroom and it's like, cool, I see a toilet. I would assume there's a shower. Like an Airbnb guest might want to actually, like, don't pull the curtain back. That might get weird, but like show that what type of shower, if it's like a glass shower door or if it's a full tub, not being able to see even any portion of like the tub or the shower in the photo can make it feel like it's just a half bathroom, right? Because these people are not reading. So if it's not in your photos, it's not really going to come through. And that can go both ways. I actually recently just had a property we had to turn down because of its really weird layout, because there's no way to convey in photos how odd this layout is. And knowing that no one would read, it was going to be a problem. And the issue with this house is that the only full bathroom was inside of a bedroom. Like 3-bedroom house. You got to go through someone's bedroom to get to the shower. There was a half bath, right? But there's no way for me to like explain that. And the photos would make it was a gorgeous house and it would look immaculate. And then they'd walk in and be upset that they couldn't get to a shower without disturbing someone. So it kind of goes both ways of like your photos have to kind of tell the truth about your Airbnb property. And they really need to highlight everything important, but also not highlight stuff that, we can't explain away.
Yeah, there's a lot more reasoning than just showing up at the house to document it, which is a lot more of the real estate feel. Though I feel like there can be some storytelling in more normal real estate photography too. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about how you find a good photographer, or how a great photographer could find a short-term rental manager. So
just marry.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
go find someone.
Is
marry
dating
them.
the owner the only way to do that, or like, what would you recommend? Is it? I feel like, or should they be swiping on Hinge, or are there other options?
We did try that, right? I do think kind of, if you're a real estate photographer, definitely trying to get a couple of these shoots under your belt and pitching yourself as someone who is able to, provide those lifestyle shoots would be what I would say to look for. If you're looking to find a photographer, it's asking them like, are you able to do more shoots to highlight things, and kind of explaining that you kind of need the basics real estate shoot plus some additional shoots, additional shots of different items. And I think at some point I kind of made a list for them of like, I want to highlight like the console table when you first walk in, and I want to open the kitchen cabinets and doors, and I want straight on shots of this, or kind of, the living room furniture to be really a focal point. So I think it's really just comes down to kind of communicating those desires. And even we don't really put as many notes, but I mean, even years in, I would like write down, hey, this house, make sure you highlight this. And if we have a really unique property, I'll still do that just to make sure that the vision that I really want to see is coming through. And then our designer, Karen, also, because she likes to check all of our photos to make sure that the editors got the colors right on her selection. She gets really mad if she picked like a green throw pillow and it's not as green as it was.
It looks gray or something like that.
Yeah, or it looks really bright and it wasn't. So sometimes we have to do a little bit of that too, because there's a lot more of editing considerations that go in when you've got all these different colors and patterns going in. But I think that communication, kind of knowing what you like, and for photographers, kind of looking at some Airbnb listings that look more successful and practicing those different angles will be really important. And then having examples of that to show to prospective clients, so they can see it too.
Do you think there's a different value? Like, would you pay more for rental photos compared to real estate? You've kind of been on both sides, but and whatever you say, we will implement immediately. So no,
I think she currently pays more for the STR shoots.
Would I, Maddie?
Yeah,
I think I do.
I'm just curious. I think they're worth at least twice as much. The STRs, like maybe triple.
I'm just curious how you think about it. I mean, having done both you've had the need for both kinds. It
Yep.
seems like it's the same thing in some regard. But on the other side, I think a lot of things that you're pointing out are there's a different sensibility. And really what you're talking about is like architectural and editorial type photography, your storytelling, you're showing off
Kind of in the middle.
design, it's interior design work. There might be an extended editing process. Might be. Sometimes it's just boilerplate. But then you have some other properties that really need to show off that it's, a high end rental property in a downtown area or at a lake or something like that. Anyways, how would you think about pricing something like this if you were a photographer and you had to kind of set prices for both?
Yeah, I mean, I do think the short and midterm, like the furnished listings that are looking for more of this, should be a higher cost than just the basic real estate photography. You are doing more shots because you kind of need to show both sides so they can make a selection from a larger pool. So I do think it deserves a little bit more. And I do think there should, and that's what we do at North 7th, there are tiered options. So I've kind of a basic 2-3 bedroom Airbnb. I have a certain package I order, but if I have something on the lake with a bunch of outdoor stuff, then I might order drone footage, right? So that I
Yeah.
can get a better view of that. And obviously that's an add-on. Or sometimes we've actually had an interesting debate recently within our team of like virtual twilight versus actual twilight shoot. And we've
Hmm.
come to the conclusion that virtual twilight actually gives us a more consistent product than the sun. It's very inconsistent some days. So, you know, it works. So yeah, virtual twilight options to do, which we do that more for like showing off a fire pit and like twinkle lights out by a space like that or out by the lake. So there's certain properties that have more amenities that we'll add on to our base package, but I do think that it is something that should cost more than an unfurnished real estate shoot. I put like long-term rentals in kind of the same camp as real estate because it is about, you shoot it pretty much the same. But for the Airbnb side, I think multiple tiers of packages, based on the amenities and the size of the property is what makes sense. And yeah, it is a higher level product, and it is something that is really important.
Are there other kinds of media that you've used or considered using besides photography? I know there are some limitations, but with what Airbnb can use as an example, but like virtual tours or videos, have those ever been a consideration?
We've done some floor plans before that can be a little bit helpful to add in so people can, especially bigger houses, so people can kind of get a feel for the space. We did do some Matterports on our midterm rentals because we thought it, because a lot of people are booking those for 3 months without touring. We thought maybe that would be an interesting place to put them, but there's just really no way to get them onto the platform, and we didn't have a great way to use them otherwise. I think that would be pretty market specific. In our market, if people are going to find us on Airbnb, that's where they're probably going to find us. The type of properties we're doing, like this isn't kind of I mean, I love our properties, they're great, but I'm not, you know, in San Francisco overlooking the ocean or, a massive cabin in Gatlinburg where someone might see that on like a Facebook reel and be like, that's the place, right? So I think there are properties that have a different market where doing video and things like that on their socials, or that would book better on a direct booking website platform. Like if you've got kind of a collection of properties that like book at one location or retreat center, then I think you'd have a lot more media needs for video tours and drone and things like that that you could have there and scale. Our particular needs, most of our stuff is through Airbnb. And honestly, Airbnb wants you to book through them. The more you book through them, the more you get reviews, the more they'll push your property. So it's kind of this loop. So unless we could really kill it direct, it's kind of better not to try to go against the thing that gives us so much of our bookings. So in our case, like I said, I think it is more of a photography need. But in those unique or a little more luxury cases, I do think there's definitely a market for more social media content, more videos, more 3D tours and things like that. If they are able to really pull in Instagram following or a direct booking site.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's pretty crazy they don't allow Matterport or 3D tours on those platforms. I mean, it seems like that would be almost a no-brainer to be able to.
I think it's because they have to link out and they don't want to publish the website or the address. So like, I think if anything that they can't control, like here's a link to another thing from Airbnb. Like the long term, I think probably it'd be fine, but I get why they wouldn't do it on Airbnb.
I don't know. We'll have to ask Brian Chesky.
I will say Airbnb has enough problems just getting hosts to pay for decent photography.
Yeah.
It's like a constant push of like they'll tell you, like they'll have this thing that pops up like you'd book more if you got better photos. And
Right.
if it's not, and I think they look at the quality or something like that to like decide if they think, and then I also think they recommend to everyone because they're trying to push their own photographers, which I've heard are not that great. But I do think like one thing I used to have, they got rid of her position, but I used to have an Airbnb market manager who worked with all like host, like larger portfolio hosts in North and South Carolina. And so she was able to give us a lot of insight. And I know that she called us her shining stars because usually she's yelling at these people like, fix your properties. Your ratings are bad. We're going to boot you off the site. Like, take care of your stuff and get good photos. Like, I don't think they're even at photos, right? They're at like, please take care of your guests. So I think for them, they're like, if we can get hosts to not use the iPhone pictures and like actually invest in this. But I do think they have a vested interest in better photography for Airbnb means more likely that they're going to convert and get bookings and make more money, which is what they would like to do too. So,
All right.
but I
So
do think we are transitioning away from mom and pop hosts more towards larger management firms, which I think gives the opportunity for more photography.
seems like there's more and more of that. So we put your idea of a photographer's hat on and tell me why it's better to work with an STR host instead of just a normal realtor or an individual homeowner.
Well, definitely better an individual homeowner because I don't have as much emotional attachment to what you're putting out there. I think there's more ability for collaboration and creativity. So I think it's a lot more fun. The realtor is just like you are a cog to get their property on the market to get their paycheck. Let's just be real. Like they want it done yesterday. They kind of care how it looks. They more care that they can get their listing done. With an STR host, you're actually going to work with someone who's going to be like benefiting from this photography for years to come. A lot of their entire goal and their vision is going to be brought to like it's not going to be brought to fruition without your work. So I think there can be a lot of creativity and fun there. I definitely think we can be picky. They know that. But if you're able to have that communication and investigation with them, discover what they're looking for and have a good collaboration, I think it could be a lot more rewarding. And again, have work that, you just get to know that it's going to be used, I guess, just in a different way, in a longer way, which I think would be really fun if I were a photographer.
Yeah, it's a little more unique. For some photographers, it might not actually be the best client. Because if you're the photographer that wants to run in, run out, and you're just doing a production churn of the same type of shoot, it doesn't sound like it would actually be fun to work with Reneé. But at the same time, I think there's probably more photographers that like the production normal work is fun, but having a little bit of a break to be actually have a little bit of a creative outlet seems like it would be, I don't know, pretty commend itself to the collaboration that Renee's talking about.
Yeah, there's definitely a mix of personalities. I think there are some that want to have it be as boilerplate as possible, and I don't want to use my brain, and not necessarily in a negative sense. Just
it's a little harsh,
but seriously, like there's a business model which is I want to
using
follow
their
the script,
business brain,
and I want to just show up and do the same thing and in and out. And then in part because on the scale of media creation, real estate media is intended to be boilerplate and lowest amount of creative input. And that's why the prices are in that range.
6 months and that's it.
Yeah, it's for the sale of the home. And then I think it is a tier over, even though you're shooting a house and you're using the same tools or at least similar tools. I think short-term rentals, and it definitely engages a different kind of part of your brain. I think there's a different kind of earning opportunity potentially.
Yeah. You said what, 30, you'd onboarded 30 houses in a year a couple of years ago. I mean, that would be like
that didn't happen.
Top 2% of realtors would have that many listings.
Yeah. Is there opportunities for repeat business over the same rental? Do you ever refresh your photos
or anything like that?
Yeah, we do we have reshoots done usually. So we have reshoots done that were done a long time ago, but a lot of things that I think the most common reason is if owners add amenities. So things like adding fences, that's one of our biggest things. We're a very pet friendly area. So having a fully fenced in yard is a huge amenity. So a lot of owners might decide to add a fence to their yard, so a reshoot to get the fence, or just the outdoor areas in general will be like, because sometimes I typically don't allow people to go to market unless it's, ready. But if it's like, okay, we're going to add a fire pit later or a fence later, that's easier to do later. It's not something that's, it's an actual add-on, not like we're skimping on the basics. So I will have owners be like, hey, I'm making some money now. Let's put in that fire pit you talked about. Let's fence in the yard. Or occasionally I've had owners add a new bathroom or kind of redo some other things. So anytime there's any major renovation or change to amenities, then we definitely do get new photos. And I would say, again, depending on your market, if you are like in a Gatlinburg market, right, you may want to, if your property wasn't listed in the fall, you're going to want to reshoot fall for sure and get all the leaves and everything. And you may want to change some of your photos dynamically throughout the year. So that can definitely, and I think I've done that before actually with some mountain properties. Like I've shot them again in the fall to get the leaves in and things like that. So that can definitely be an opportunity as well. Yeah, if you list in the winter near a lake.
Do you ever include like city photos or, like if it's local to Greer, which is obviously local, no one else in our area is going to know that's watching this.
No one has heard of Greer.
But, it's got a beautiful downtown or a park nearby. Do you include photos like that?
I don't typically, because a lot of people will kind of do it at the end and it does feel like it kind of is distracting. Places where I've considered doing it that I haven't yet is like we have one listing that's very close to Legacy Park and a coffee shop that you can walk there. So I would consider maybe doing some community shots there because I think that could be helpful because it's very easily accessible and walkable to that area. And then like, of course, like we have we have this really cool like historic building that we manage on Main Street. It's pink. We call it Pinky. We have two of them, Pinky 1 and Pinky 2.
You've driven by it like 1,000 times. It's how you
There's
get on
always a bunch of
385.
Instagrammers outside taking photos against the pink wall.
They're
Definitely
pretty
draws
cool.
a lot of people.
You can even go up all the way onto the roof. Like there's like this little spiral
Pinky
staircase.
1 has a rooftop. Yep. Yeah, it has a spiral staircase and you can sit on the roof and look over downtown. The one weird thing is like you can hear every conversation from the street in the living room though. So there's some trade-offs.
Yeah.
Even with like a triple pane window, it's just right there. But we do have some downtown pictures of like that from the street because it is so, it's on the street. So we've got lots of really cool pictures of the sign and stuff like that for those properties. But otherwise, I just think it can clutter and it can, cause confusion of like people just don't read, right? So they might think that they're right next to that, to that whatever place
you've shown, and it's really 3 blocks away, and then they get grumpy about it.
Yeah, or a mile, or it's just Greenville General, and you're not near downtown. The weirdest questions I've had people ask me how far I am to the beach. And I was like the ocean beach?
A little ways.
Yeah.
Like 4 hours.
A few hours, yeah.
Sorry.
A short 4-hour drive to the beach. Pick a beach. Yeah.
Few know this, but Greenville is known for its beaches.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's we've had some people book thinking it was Greenville, North Carolina a few times too.
That's also not really near the beach, but it's maybe a little closer to the beach.
Not.
Someone will fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure there's a Greenville in every state.
It's not every state. I thought that too, but
It's
going
close.
through Leadership Greenville, I think it's like 42 or 43 states. Like there's not a Greenville, Hawaii, for instance.
It's too bad.
Yeah. But it is in most of them. Most of them are named after Nathaniel Green. So
Interesting. Before we leave the talk on mediums, is there a place for like graphics in these photos? Like particularly aerial shots where it drops, local restaurants and things like that.
Maybe to solve that problem you're saying where they think it's closer than it is.
Or even like in the cabinet shots, pointing, like silverware and pots and pans and all that sort of stuff. What are the kind of opportunities for graphic editing beyond just the initial photos?
I think I have seen some really cool ones, especially like in more of a downtown metro area where it kind of shows like you are here and like Peace Center, Bilo Center. These are all Greenville places, guys. And it's not even called the Bilo Center anymore.
Yes, it is.
Sorry about that.
It will always be the Bilo Center.
It will, but it's not.
You're 20 years off, I think. But
so
Bilo is now bankrupt, but it's still the Bilo Center.
Well, it was Bilo, TV. It was something in between, and now it's the Well. Anyway.
The Bon Secours Wellness Arena. What a mouthful.
I think yeah, it's something. But I do think like those maps where, yeah, you do kind of show where you are in relation to things. I've seen that in other markets. I think that's pretty cool where we currently are. Because, well, so we have some limitations with our city. If you're not like within the central business district, you can't really rent if you're in the city limits. So we're not as close to downtown with a lot of our properties. But I think that I have seen some really cool things where they just really help to highlight key amenities, key places that people want to travel and show how close they are. I think that could be a really good thing. I don't know about the pointing to the silverware. I feel like those photos are already a little cluttered and self-explanatory, but but they are helpful. People compliment on them.
Yeah. Are there other editing considerations? Like, I don't know if we've ever done this, but had like editing out um, the like address numbers on the house and things like that. Is that an issue, or what other considerations are there?
I've not had that. I've not had you guys do that at all, but I know I have spoken with a lot of STR hosts that get really weird, and not here, but like really get really weirded out about using an exterior shot at all. I think that's a big miss because a lot of people don't really want to rent unless they've seen what it looks like outside. But I could see, people maybe wanting to edit that out. I mean, addresses like the street name and stuff is hidden until closer to check-in from Airbnb until you book. But I think that could be a consideration. Like I said, the virtual twilight we've used a lot, as well as aerials.
All right, we just have a minute or so left, but I think it would be great in terms of the goals here to go back to some specific strategies for breaking in or engaging an STR to want to use a photographer. So if you weren't going after this sexiness and you had to choose another photographer, what would you be looking for?
I would be asking for examples. I would be looking for the types of photos they've done before. Also, though, to put my realtor hat on, like turnaround time is really important. I can't wait 2 weeks between the shoot and when I have my photos. So I do need pretty regular availability, probably able to book within about a week at max is the amount of heads up I can give. And then I do need photos pretty quickly. So, and then wanting that communication and ability to kind of review and be open to hearing our different shots. So it would probably look like seeing their stuff, making sure availability and editing timeframes were a fit. And then I would probably do similarly like I did with North 7th and talk through like, these are the shots I like, these are the shots I don't like, this is what needs to be in place in every shoot. And then kind of try them out and see if that worked. And hopefully if we need to have a couple iterations of that, we could. But that's probably what I'd be looking for.
And does beard size matter in picking a photographer?
It's probably, I mean, is he the one that shoots them? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't, maybe it's a little important.
It's important for Reneé, but I don't know if it translates for every STR host, but maybe, I don't know.
Because I don't know that but I mean, the beard was pretty short back then, though.
Yeah, back then it was probably about half. I guess half of this
I mean,
got the job done. So
scruffy.
if this is
If
this is intimidating in finding your favorite STR host or your wife, like just realize that I only needed half of it to actually get it done. So, any other thoughts or advice that you would give to a photographer? Maybe even along the lines of like, if you had to go research and find someone, what might you look for on their website that would signal that this might be the one you would choose as opposed to the other 60 that are in the city?
For me, it's going to be anyone that seems to understand just the excellence idea and value of like just attention to detail and just, I don't know, that personalization, just commitment to excellence or attention to detail that comes through. I don't want to feel like a cog in the machine. I want to feel like there's special attention being paid. So anyone that can kind of give that personal touch. But I also say advice to photographers too is like, I just told you, right? We're the shining star of the Airbnb hosts. So not all hosts are like me and don't always see the value. And so stick to your guns, stick to like what is good. Do some research on how you can help their booking revenue, and then hold fast to like, no, it needs to look good. It needs to be to be shot well, and that is going to pay off. And really, help them. Don't let them half set up their house for you, right? Like if you really commit to making sure that the people that you're shooting for see that value and then get the best results for them, and you kind of become their expert and guide for setting up their Airbnb the best, they're going to be a repeat client. They're going to continue to refer you because you've added value to them and been an advisor and not just a photographer, and helping them reach their goals. And I think that part has been what we did with that with owners has been fundamental to our success. And I think in the same way, putting yourself as that expert and advisor to really help them excel will also build that platform for you very well.
Do you think that it would be helpful? Like, would it matter to you if you're looking at different websites for different photographers and one said they had a particular Airbnb shoot and one did not? So one had just, I have a photography shoot, and one had Airbnb shoot and photography. Is that kind of differentiation helpful, or do you think that wouldn't make much of a difference?
I think it would definitely make a difference because, I hate to say it, when I first looked for a photographer, I did not look at real estate photographers. I looked at people with a broader portfolio because I knew I needed more than just the real estate photography. So I think highlighting that you are more than just the real estate photography package, that you are having a specialist offering in Airbnb is vitally important to people finding you. Not that everyone will think like I do, but I think it is a niche photography kind of area, and I would totally highlight it and price it differently.
I have one call out for photographer listeners. I definitely would recommend considering shooting these rental properties. There's a little bit more attention needed, and I think that that is a consideration. But one of the things that's always different from real estate is that at the back end of these, you have really good looking photos. With real estate, they're usually last minute right before a sale. And so like you've got all this personal stuff on the walls, or there's boxes, and you rarely get something that looks really good. But with these properties, they're staged professionally. You're working with professional teams. And so like they're very eye catching, and obviously you can do creative things that you just don't often get the opportunity to do when you're shooting real estate. So I think it's definitely worth considering just on the portfolio side, because I love going through, and when we're trying to find photos as examples, going through Renee's is like the top list because I know there's going to be good looking photos in there because the houses were intentionally designed and the photos were designed to be appealing. And that just, it's not that you don't want to make appealing photos when you're shooting real estate.
But sometimes you could only work with so much of a canvas. So
right, yeah. With real estate, it's a little bit more documentarian. Like you're actually trying to this is what the room looks like. That's not necessarily going to be the case with Airbnbs and short-term rentals and stuff like that.
So a great opportunity for a photographer to like focus in on, like, this can be a portfolio piece. Like a lot of things are kind of stacked in your favor to really go all out on these kinds of shoots and have more stuff to showcase.
Exactly. Yeah.
Maybe attract other STRs. Don't attract other wives though. That's just one. One's enough. Yeah. All right. So on that note, how do people follow or book with the cutest Airbnb manager in the world?
Oh yeah. Well, you can if you go to look for Greenville properties and click around, you'll probably find me. No, but you can book directly with us at bookgreenville.com. So that's our website where if you wanted to book a stay, you could do that. We'll also peruse our photos. And then our website is westbrookhospitality.com. It needs to be updated to more of what we do now, but it still tells you about us and who we are and what we do.
Is there any like social media or anything that would be helpful for you, for people to be able to follow you?
I am not. Don't do a ton. I think we have a couple Facebook pages, but I'm not the best at posting on them.
Awesome. So websites it is.
Shame from my spouse right now, but yes. More websites and then Facebook groups I'm a part of. And I would say that is a big thing. A lot of us Airbnb hosts, we do get in a lot of Facebook groups together, especially locally, to kind of touch base, warn each other of certain guests. Oops. So that's a great place to try to go and find hosts, is to look and see if there is like an Airbnb host group, Facebook group in your area, because a lot of us are in there.
All righty. Well, thank you very much, Renee. You've been an awesome guest, and I'll see you in a few minutes.
Okay.